What if I told you that loneliness after 70 isn't a life sentence, but a moment waiting to be rewritten? That even if your phone rarely rings, even if the house feels too quiet, even if the days sometimes blur together, there are simple, beautiful ways to reconnect, heal, and rediscover the joy of being fully, gloriously you. Today, I'll show you 8 gentle steps that can help break the silence, and remind you that you were never meant to walk this path alone. Have you ever sat in a quiet room, surrounded by your favorite things, and still felt something was missing? Not because you needed more company, but because the company you once had just isn't there anymore. It sneaks up on you. A quiet morning coffee, an empty chair, the silence after a favorite song ends. That feeling, the hollow pause between one heartbeat and the next, that's loneliness. And it feels different after 70. It's not just about being alone. It's about being unseen. Now, if that sounds familiar, let me tell you, you're not broken. And you're not alone in feeling this way. Meet Arthur. He's 78. Lives in a small brick house outside of Portland. His wife passed 4 years ago, and the days started to melt together. Morning, lunch, evening, sleep. Rinse and repeat. The phone barely rang, and when it did, it was often a robocall, not his son. For a while, Arthur thought he was just being realistic. That's what old age is, he'd shrug. Everyone's busy. It's fine. But deep down, it wasn't fine. One day, while putting out his recycling, Arthur ran into a neighbor's teenage grandson, a boy he'd seen many times, but never spoken to. The boy said, "You always wear cool hats." That's it. One line. But something opened up in Arthur that day. And it made him wonder, had I closed off without realizing it? That's where we begin. Because loneliness isn't just the absence of others. Sometimes, it's the absence of hope that things could feel better again. You see, after 70, something changes. Many seniors report that they aren't necessarily surrounded by fewer people, they just feel less connected. And this emotional shift can feel like a slow fade of color from life. That's not weakness. It's a sign that you care deeply. That your heart still reaches for warmth, for connection, for meaning. That's a beautiful thing. But how do we move forward? Let me share something else. A woman named Lillian, 81, former piano teacher, still wears bright lipstick every day, once said, "The loneliest moment wasn't when I was alone. It was when I was surrounded by people who didn't really see me anymore." What she realized over time is this: to beat loneliness, you have to stop waiting for someone to knock on your door. Sometimes, you're the one who has to open it first. Lillian started a Sunday tea ritual. She'd bake shortbread, put out an extra cup on her porch, and invite whoever. The first few Sundays, no one came. The third week, a girl walking her dog accepted the cookie but declined the tea. But by the 6th week, she had 3 regulars. One was a man who used to mow lawns nearby. Another, a retired nurse. And yes, the dog walker eventually joined too. She created space for connection, even when no one promised to show up. That's powerful. Loneliness often tries to convince us that no one wants us anymore. But the truth? Most people don't know how to reach out. They're afraid they'll interrupt. Or they assume you're too proud, too independent, too busy. So the connection dies quietly, not from rejection, but from hesitation. That's why the first real way to beat loneliness is to make the smallest offer. A wave to a neighbor. A thank you to the cashier. A compliment to the person next to you at the pharmacy. These aren't small acts. These are seeds. The second truth? Rhythm is everything. When our lives lose structure, after retirement, or when a spouse is gone, our emotional world can begin to drift. Having rituals gives your day shape and intention. They don't have to be fancy. A 10 a.m. walk. A weekly call with your cousin, even if you only talk about the weather. A crossword puzzle every night before bed. Routines create predictability, and predictability brings safety. When you feel safe, you open up. And when you open up, connection becomes possible again. Let's go deeper. One of the most overlooked contributors to loneliness in older adults is what some researchers call role loss. Think about it. You were a parent, a spouse, a professional, maybe even the life of the party. But over time, those roles shift. Your kids don't need guidance. Your job no longer needs you. The party happens without you. So what's left? That feeling of invisibility? It doesn't mean you've become less valuable. It means the world stopped reflecting your value back to you. And that's why redefining your identity becomes a lifeline. Let me tell you about Ray. Ray's 74, and after retiring from running a hardware store, he felt aimless. His hands, once always busy fixing things, now hovered in midair. His wife would catch him just standing in the garage. Not doing anything. Just standing. One day, she said, "You used to teach people how to fix faucets. Why not record yourself doing it?" Fast forward 6 months, Ray now has a YouTube channel with 4,000 subscribers. And while most of them don't know his full story, they comment things like, "You explain things better than anyone else. You helped me fix my mom's sink. Thank you for making me feel capable." He found a new mirror. One that reflected back a version of himself that still had purpose, still had reach. You don't have to start a channel. But you do have wisdom. Life experience. Humor. Stories no one else can tell. And someone, somewhere, would be better just for hearing them. So here's something you can do today. Pick one story from your life, something small, like the first car you drove, or a time you got lost in a new city. Write it down, or record yourself telling it on your phone. Then share it. Email it to your grandchild. Post it to a community bulletin board. You'd be amazed how these small bridges bring others closer, even if they're just across the street. And if all of this feels like too much today, that's okay too. Loneliness is not solved overnight. It's softened, step by step, by small gestures, new rituals, and tiny windows of connection you allow back into your life. So breathe. You've already taken the first step by listening to this. You're not alone anymore in this moment. We're in this together. There's something strangely comforting about watching birds in the early morning, isn't there? That quiet fluttering, the soft chatter. They aren't trying to impress anyone, they're just present. A woman named Eloise once said that watching the same pair of robins return to her porch every spring reminded her that belonging doesn't always come from people, sometimes it comes from patterns. But even the most peaceful routines can start to feel hollow when there's no one to share them with. And that's when loneliness digs a little deeper, not just into your day, but into your identity. It whispers, "You're not part of anything anymore." But that's a lie we simply don't have to accept. Let's talk about shared purpose. You see, one of the most effective ways older adults have pushed back against isolation isn't just by staying busy, but by staying useful, in a way that matters to someone else. There's a quiet dignity in being needed, no matter your age. I met a man named Sam through a veterans writing group. He's 83 now. Widowed, lives alone, no surviving children. I figured I was just waiting out the clock, he told me the first time we spoke. But then something happened. A neighbor's daughter, a shy 10-year-old named Mia, needed help building a birdhouse for a school project. Someone had told her, "Ask Mr. Sam, he knows tools." That moment? It reignited something. Sam ended up helping Mia with the project, then tutoring her in math. She started bringing him cookies. Her parents started bringing him Sunday leftovers. And just like that, Sam had a new role, trusted mentor, neighbor, almost family. We often assume that to beat loneliness, we have to reach wide, start clubs, host gatherings, make bold moves. But sometimes, you just need to look one door down. The world is full of people, young and old, who crave connection just as much as you do. They're just waiting for a reason to knock. Now, I know what some might be thinking. But I'm not good with people. Or, I've always been private. I don't want to impose. And that's completely valid. Not everyone wants to join social clubs or lead community events. That's why it's so important to personalize your path out of loneliness. Let's explore something subtle, but powerful. Correspondence. Yes, I mean letters. Emails. Even voice messages sent from your phone. There's a woman in Illinois named Bernice, age 86, who's built a network of pen pals, but not in the way you might think. She writes one short note a week to someone she already knows, her niece, a neighbor who moved away, an old church friend. The key? She doesn't wait for a reply. She just writes. I realized, she said, that connection doesn't need to be two-way to be meaningful. Sometimes, it's enough to simply reach. One of her notes even made it onto her great-grandson's fridge, a short memory about his dad learning to fish. Bernice didn't know until months later, when she saw a photo. She cried. You never know the ripple you start when you send a little piece of yourself into someone else's world. Another underrated lifeline? Animals. It's true, not everyone is in a position to care for a pet. But for those who are, the emotional return is immense. There's this quiet comfort that comes from routine affection, feeding, brushing, hearing little paws follow you around. Studies have shown that seniors who own pets report reduced blood pressure, better sleep, and most notably, less loneliness. Let's take Norman, for instance. He never imagined himself a cat person. But after his wife passed, the house got too quiet. Too still. One day at the shelter, a volunteer handed him a small black and white cat who curled up in his lap and purred like a motorboat. That cat, Buttons, is now his shadow. Follows him to breakfast, sits by him during the 6 o'clock news, and waits outside the bathroom door. Norman told me, I talk to her more than I talk to some relatives. And the best part? She always listens. Of course, pets aren't the only living things that bring warmth. Have you ever tried talking to your plants? Sounds silly, maybe, but more than one senior I know has found solace in gardening. Not just the act of planting, but the cycle it creates: care, growth, change, beauty. In a world where loss can feel constant, tending to something that flourishes under your hands can be deeply healing. And here's another powerful truth: movement creates momentum, emotionally and physically. Loneliness often comes with a heaviness, a kind of inner fog. And yet, one of the most effective ways to disrupt that fog is to move your body. I don't mean exercise just for fitness. I mean movement that's rhythmic, purposeful, and, most importantly, sustainable. A daily walk. Gentle chair yoga. A little dance while cooking dinner. These acts help reset your chemistry. They literally lift your mood. And when your mood lifts, it becomes easier to say yes, to phone calls, to walks with others, to hope. One of the kindest gentlemen I know, Jorge, age 79, joined a local walking group not because he loved fitness, but because he hated eating lunch alone. The group met in the park every Thursday. For the first 2 months, he barely spoke. But slowly, one person asked about his shoes. Another commented on the weather. One woman remembered his name. Eventually, lunch followed the walk. Now, he organizes the routes. You don't have to lead to belong. But showing up, even quietly, is how the light starts getting in again. We often imagine beating loneliness as a grand, sweeping victory. Like flipping a switch from dark to bright. But it's rarely like that. It's more like learning to open the blinds, one slat at a time. And if you've made it this far with me, here's a gentle challenge: Can you try one new thing this week that gently stretches your circle? Write to someone. Walk a new path. Sit on a different bench. Make eye contact. Say hello. Loneliness loses its grip not through one loud act, but through 1,000 quiet choices to stay engaged with life. And trust me, life is still inviting you in. There's a moment, usually late in the afternoon, when the light softens just enough to cast long, warm shadows. It's a beautiful time of day, but also, for many older adults, it's the loneliest. That hour between still and not yet. Too late for morning energy, too early for evening comfort. It's when some people stare out the window and ask, quietly, is this it? Is this all there is now? But what if I told you that this hour, the one that feels the most empty, could become a turning point? That there's still something waiting to be built? Let's explore something you may not have considered before, reconnecting with your own inner voice. Loneliness can sometimes convince us that connection only comes from others, that we need someone outside of ourselves to feel whole again. But often, the first bridge out of that hollow space is inward. Reacquainting yourself with your own company. A lovely woman named Hester, now 84, once told me she used to fill her days with endless distractions, television, puzzles, cleaning, not because she loved them, but because the quiet made her feel sad. I was avoiding myself, she said. Until one evening, I lit a candle, sat with a cup of tea, and just listened. It felt strange at first. Then comforting. I realized I hadn't had a conversation with me in years. Journaling, meditation, prayer, even just whispering thoughts out loud while sitting by the window, these small practices reconnect you with your emotional rhythm. And here's the magic: when you're anchored in yourself, you're far more open to the outside world. You start noticing details again, the sound of leaves, the smile of a stranger, the warmth in your own voice. The fog lifts. Let's gently shift the lens toward community, though not in the way most people imagine it. You don't need to be surrounded by dozens of people to feel like you belong. Community doesn't mean crowds. Sometimes it's one reliable presence, even if it's digital. There's a man named Leonard, 76, who joined an online discussion group during the pandemic. Nothing fancy, just a weekly Zoom call where people talked about books, weather, and sometimes just how they were feeling that day. I didn't even speak much at first, Leonard told me. I just watched. But seeing those same faces show up every week, it gave me something to look forward to. It wasn't about deep conversations or best friendships. It was about consistency, shared time, and feeling seen. Those are the building blocks of connection. So if you're someone who's hesitant about technology, maybe even frustrated by it, you're not alone. But this is where digital literacy becomes not just a skill, but a lifeline. Ask a grandchild to help you set up a video call. Visit a library where a kind librarian can walk you through your tablet. Watch a simple YouTube tutorial on how to send a message. You'd be surprised how many people out there would be thrilled, truly thrilled, to help you connect. And while we're here, let's talk about forgiveness, because this might be the most unexpected source of loneliness of all. Not just the forgiveness you offer others, but the kind you offer yourself. You see, many older adults carry the silent weight of unresolved regrets. Things not said. Relationships left behind. Words that still echo in the mind. And these old echoes build walls, the kind that keep connection out, even when it's right in front of you. There's a story I'll never forget about a woman named Dottie. She's 88 now. For nearly 20 years, she hadn't spoken to her sister. A silly falling out over a family recipe, can you imagine? But the real reason wasn't the soup. It was old pain, old comparison, old jealousy. One evening, Dottie said to herself, if I don't try now, I may never get the chance. So she wrote a letter. It was short. It didn't rehash old wounds. It simply said, I miss you. I hope we can talk again. The letter was met with tears, then a phone call, and now, monthly visits. The decades in between haven't vanished, but they've been softened by new time. Sometimes, the deepest loneliness stems from a wall you've built to protect yourself, not realizing it also kept others out. If there's someone you've lost contact with, not due to death, but distance, and you think of them from time to time, that might be your heart inviting you back into connection. And if they don't answer, you've still lightened the weight on your own soul. Now, here's something that might surprise you: purpose doesn't always feel like purpose when you're living it. Many seniors think, "I'm not doing anything important anymore." But if you ask the people around them, their neighbors, delivery drivers, caregivers, grandchildren, you'd find a very different story. One of the most beloved women in a Florida retirement complex is known simply as the Lobby Lady. Her name is Carol. Every morning, for the past 6 years, she's sat in the lobby with her knitting and greeted everyone who passed by. Not nosy. Not loud. Just kind. "Hi, sweetheart. Your hair looks great today. How's your mom doing? That scarf you wore yesterday? Gorgeous." Carol doesn't think she's doing anything special. But when the staff threw her a surprise birthday party, they called her the heartbeat of the building. Her presence had become a source of warmth, a reason people looked forward to walking through the door. You don't have to be doing something big to matter. Showing up with kindness is enough. Which brings us to a quiet truth: healing from loneliness isn't just about gaining people, it's about becoming available to life again. Saying yes to new textures, sounds, ideas. Watching a bird nest outside your window and naming it. Starting a weekly soup night, even if it's just you and one neighbor. Writing poems in the margin of your newspaper. Trying a new flavor of tea. Learning a song from a decade you didn't grow up in. It's not about forcing joy. It's about making room for surprise. And as we near the final part of this journey together, I want you to pause and just acknowledge something powerful: you've stayed with me this far. That says something. About your heart. About your hope. About your readiness to take even one small step toward connection again. Loneliness is persistent, yes. But so is the human spirit. And yours? Still burns with possibility. There's a moment in every journey where we stop and look back, not just at the path we've walked, but at who we've become along the way. If you've made it here with me, I want you to take a quiet breath. Not because the loneliness has vanished, but because you've faced it. That takes courage. That takes spirit. And that spirit? It hasn't aged a day. See, loneliness doesn't mean something's wrong with you. It means you've loved deeply, lived fully, and now your soul is looking for new ways to connect again. That longing isn't a flaw. It's a signal. It's your inner compass whispering, there is still more life here for you. Let's talk about one of the most powerful, and often overlooked, ways to ease loneliness: being of service. No, not the kind that requires energy you don't have. I mean small, doable acts that make someone else's day a bit easier. A handwritten note slid under a neighbor's door. A phone call to check in on someone who recently lost a spouse. Donating a warm blanket. Saying, "Can I help carry that?" at the pharmacy. These may seem tiny. But to the person on the other side, they're monumental. A man named Malik, 72, started volunteering at a community food pantry just once a month. He didn't do it to socialize, he did it because he missed feeling useful. What he didn't expect was the ripple effect. A young worker there called him Grandpa M. The staff surprised him with a thank you card. One woman brought him cookies because he reminded her of her dad. He didn't set out to make friends. He just showed up. But that simple act of service cracked something open. And through it came warmth, belonging, and laughter, the very things he thought were lost forever. You see, loneliness often makes us feel invisible. But giving, even in the smallest ways, restores your reflection in the eyes of others. You begin to see yourself again. Now here's a gentle truth. You don't have to chase friendship to find companionship. You just have to offer presence. Sometimes, simply being there, quietly, consistently, is all someone needs to feel safe enough to reach back. And let's not forget one of the most beautiful tools we have: storytelling. Your memories, your lessons, your jokes, they are a bridge. A connection point. Every time you share a piece of your life, the way you danced in your 20s, the mischief you got into at school, the meal your grandmother made every Christmas, you invite someone else in. You invite them to see you, not just as older, but as fully, richly human. And if no one's around to listen, write it anyway. Record it. Archive it. You never know whose heart it will touch later. You might be telling a story now that helps your great-grandchild feel less alone decades from today. Here's something tender to remember: you are someone's someday memory. Someone, somewhere, will talk about you, how you smiled, what you said, how you made them feel. Loneliness may cloud the present, but it cannot erase the legacy of kindness, resilience, and love you carry. Before we close, I want to share one last story. There's a woman named June, 87, who lives in a small cottage by the sea. Every evening, she lights one candle and says out loud, "Today, I showed up." Some days she sees no one. Some days, she chats with a neighbor. But every day, she honors the fact that she kept going. That she made space for hope. That candle? It's not just a ritual. It's a quiet promise: I am still here. I am still open. And you are too. So if you've been waiting for a sign, to reach out, to join something, to try again, this is it. Not because life is perfect, but because life, even in its simplest form, is still offering you moments of beauty, of laughter, of meaning. All you need to do is meet it halfway. So here's your invitation: choose one thing. Just one. Call an old friend. Wave at the neighbor you always see but never speak to. Start a journal. Say yes to a coffee. Volunteer once. Adopt a plant. Hum a tune you used to dance to. Whatever it is, let it be small, honest, and kind to yourself. Connection doesn't require a crowd. Just a heart willing to stay open. And yours? It's open now. So, to you, the listener, the feeler, the fighter, thank you. Thank you for staying with me. Thank you for being brave enough to name what hurts, and for daring to imagine what could heal. You're not alone. Not anymore. Not now. Not ever again, not if you don't want to be. If you found comfort in today's message, please take a moment to leave a comment below, even just to say, "I'm here." Like this video if it helped you feel less alone. And subscribe for more gentle, hopeful conversations like this one. These videos are made with a lot of care and a big heart. If you notice anything that could be improved, please feel free to comment. Your support helps make each video better. Until next time, stay soft, stay strong, and remember, your presence matters more than you know.